Well, hi everyone. This is Scott King over at Zimperium, and thanks for joining me for the top 5 ways hackers attack your app. So this research is a culmination of research with the Zimperium Z Labs organization. So they helped me correlate some attack methods, some tools, and some examples of what we see out there in the marketplace and how mobile apps are attacked and how we're going to defend. So, defending against these constant attacks is a full-time job, and you have to measure it and implement different methods throughout the life cycle. And so we're going to talk a little bit about these 5 methods of attacks. We're going to talk about authentication attacks, authorization, spoofing and tampering, erasing resources attacks, and then which apps have leaked information out on the internet. So mobile app security is challenging, and we're going to teach you how to do it, and we're going to teach you what hackers do to thwart you, right? So just going to click along here and go into authentication attacks. So authentication attacks, we've got 4 different methods: static reverse engineering, credentials, information gathering, and then just plain out poor coding. So let's get started with static reverse engineering. So here in static reverse engineering, the hacker attempts to gain information about an app via its source code. So they're just going to download the app, look what's inside it, and really what they're trying to do is they're trying to uncover how the app works. They're looking for algorithms. They're looking for embedded credentials, right? Or what type of security checks you have in place. They're going to learn how to bypass those. Some of the tools down at the bottom that they use to do this, Frida. We get lots of questions about Frida, how to detect that someone is actually doing that. Captain Hook for hooking, SendScript and SendJect, to inject code into your app and to really to make sure that you are defending against these. You need to have some type of real-time detection. So is your app being run in a debugger or an emulator? So how do you detect that? And some examples that they provided are a couple different examples. Tesco Bank. So Tesco Bank, hackers basically uncovered communication and credential information by reverse engineering the Tesco mobile app. And what they were able to do is steal £2.5 million of money through the SWIFT transaction system from 9,000 different accounts over a single night. So, and those hackers have still not been caught and never will, I don't believe. And then the BitFi wallet. So the BitFi wallet was popularized by John McAfee. And basically what hackers were able to do is reverse engineer the app and uncover some of the authentication credentials, and then the private keys were exposed. So then the hackers used the private keys to steal funds from people's wallets. So big coup there. So credentials phishing. Here the attacker really trying to find somebody's credentials, either a user or an administrator or a developer. And what you're trying to do is break into something else. So you're using the mobile app as a proxy for a larger attack. And what are you going to do? You're going to maybe you spear phish, maybe you do email phishing, SMS phishing. There's a lot of custom tools out there that help you do this as well. And so, is this real? Yeah, it's real. One of my favorite examples that the labs guys provided me was the Manchester Metrolink mobile app. So essentially, hackers took the mobile app from the App Store and they reverse engineered. They were looking around for information, and they found the RSA private keys used to assign the QR codes to all the people riding the metro. And they found those keys. What they did is they use those keys to provide their own QR codes for a free ride for £0. And then they distributed that on the internet. So so everybody got free rides for a day. And it was basically a campaign. They said, public transportation should be free. So really, really neat example of how information inside your mobile app was used against the developer. Second example is the North Korea linked to a massive phishing campaign. So basically they targeted foreign ministries of 3 different countries, and they were sending them messages trying to trick the victims into surrendering credentials. So big high profile attack. And then information gathering. So basically what we mean by information gathering is you're looking for information usually intended for, other aspects of an attack. You're looking for business information, government information, basically competitive advantage. Like, can you get information maybe before it hits the market? And then you could short the market or do whatever if you're intelligent enough to do that. But basically you just get information, right? You're looking for addresses and passwords and phone numbers, bank account details. With all of our information on the dark web via other breaches, that information is out there that can be used against us for social engineering, right? And then if hackers or attackers are using that information, you get really intelligent spear phishing campaigns. I mean, you could almost have real-time information for a spear phishing campaign and really trick the user into surrendering something that they don't want to. So, earlier this year, Microsoft saw attackers launch 2,700 attempts to identify specific target email accounts, and those were belonging to current and U.S. former government officials, right? So these were people involved in presidential elections. So be careful around that. We got an election coming up next year, and just be wary of who you interact with. Maybe that is entering your device, communicating with you, and you don't know them. So just call them instead. Two-factor authentication. And then poor coding. So this here, attackers really, again, they're looking at the app and they're just looking at anything that is available. So it aims to exploit an app that can be both legitimate and non-malicious, but whose coding is poor, right? So did you forget a step? Did you hard code credentials? Did you, did you leave libraries exposed? Are you using an easily attacked third-party library that maybe you didn't construct, but you're consuming it, or some endpoint? And really what they're looking for is to gain personal or sensitive information about you, via your mobile app. And so lots of custom tools here, lots of open source tools that you can use just to introspect an app and make sure that it's working correctly in looking for mistakes. One of the examples was a major flaw in the Conservatives' official conference mobile phone application. So this was a conference last year in the UK, and anybody that logged in could see anybody's information. So if you downloaded the app, you could guess an email address from a government official, because normally those are online or on public websites, and you could see everyone's information. So really the poor coding in this application surrendered lots of private phone numbers, emails, private details, and is really bad situation. I mean, no one was harmed, but again, just an example of a bad job on really quality assurance in that app. So that was authentication attacks. So next we're going to move authorization attacks. So these are really, really cool too. And for authorization attacks, what we're going to provide you is some information about botnets, root detection bypass, some app vulnerabilities, so it's just the app vulnerable by itself, and then how to get around protection, right? So protection bypass methods that hackers use. So a botnet. So botnet leverages basically the distributed computing power of all the devices. So you can think of, if I'm an app provider and I have my app on 100,000 devices, can I use those devices? Can I use the processing power, right? So it's basically, to find a connected device, use the resource power for it, and maybe I want to, provide advertising, maybe some click bots. I can show ads in the background using these devices, and you don't see the ad, but I'm defrauding the ad network. So it may not harm you, but I'm defrauding another party. And then the primary vehicle that hackers use are basically just Trojan applications. So they're embedding extra code inside a utility application that you may use, and they're using your processing power to make clicks. And one of the more notable examples is the Android dress code malware. So dress code was an app that you could use to dress up dolls and things like that. And it was found on the same malware was found on more than 400 apps, and it basically creates a botnet that uses proxy IP addresses. And researchers suspect that this was used to disguise ad clicks, right, and generate false traffic. And the false traffic generated revenue for the attacker. So basically, he just snuck under everybody. Really, really neat example. The next is root detection bypass. So why would you want to bypass this? So a lot of apps won't let you run the app on a rooted or jailbroken device. So hackers want to bypass this check, and essentially, I want to falsify the root detection. So basically, I want to provide a true when it should read false. And the bypass restrictions are hindering the usability of a root-based device. So maybe you have rooted your device and you want to run this app. So you can use a couple of different tools, Frida and Magisk, right? So you can use Magisk to trick the application into thinking your device is not rooted, right? So Magisk is a tool. You can download this on the internet, and you need to have a check on to see if your users are actually using this against you to detect. Of course, we at Zimperium have technology to do this, but you want to take a look at, make sure that you're covering the root detection bypass. So most people, most financial apps, banking apps, payment apps will actually do root detection, but you need to make sure that you have a system in place to detect that someone is not spoofing that. So app vulnerabilities. So this attack seeks to identify and then exploit just vulnerabilities in your app, right? So they're looking for sensitive and valuable information, and there's a lot of automated tools to do this, right? So there's a lot of custom tools to make sure that you're doing this, or hack code and Andriller are being used for this. One of the most notable examples is a British Airways mobile app. The mobile app and the e-commerce systems were hacked and later leaked more than 500,000 consumer records. And it included the credit card numbers and the CVV data, the little secret 3 or 4 number on your card. And then basically hackers infiltrated a third-party system to siphon this data. So the app vulnerability in that hack was through a third party. So make sure that you're not susceptible to supply chain hacks as well. And then Air Canada, the mobile app was hacked in the same method, 20,000 records this time. But again, hackers infiltrated a third-party system that the airline was using. So make sure that you're checking for that. And then protection bypass. So if you're using any type of obfuscation technology, any type of protection to obfuscate your code, or maybe mask all your libraries and everything, it's possible to actually bypass those checks. So what hackers are really trying to do is, if you want to hide your code from them, then they really want it, right? So it must be a high value. So to gain access to the actual code of the application or reverse engineer the implementation of a specific algorithm, if they can figure out how the algorithm works, then they can use that against you and learn about how your app is using. And this is a full-time job for them. So they're not working on this 5-10 minutes, an hour a day. It's a full-time job because it's high-value work. Again, you'll see Frida, Expose, Substrate, same type of tools used in the root detection bypass. A lot of privately developed tools and emulators. So an intelligent attacker, or actually, learn more about your app and develop a tool specifically for you. So, as mobile malware advances to the levels of desktop malware, it's not uncommon to stumble upon, protected APKs while analyzing malware. And most of the times the sample is obfuscated, but several times layers deep, a researcher can find the original code. So you want to make sure that you're not leaving that exposed. So that's authentication and authorization attacks. And next we've got spoofing and tampering attacks. So I'll click over here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how banks are being mocked, impersonized, payment scams. We're going to talk again about malvertising. So this is advertising that is unintentional. And then repackaging legitimate applications. So let's go to bank impersonation. So basically, these attacks leverage malicious mobile apps, right? So they're designed to trick users into thinking they're from the real bank. And if I can trick you, then you will surrender your credentials to me. And then once an account is breached, criminals can transfer payments, they can add payees, they can drain your bank account. Second versions of the bank bot malware mentioned there below with the screen overlay was actually able to capture the two-factor authentication, the SMS codes, coming back to the device. So the hackers would actually capture those codes and then log into the web interface using your code, because they knew when you were logging into online banking. They had your credentials because you gave it to them with the overlay, and then they captured the code coming over your SMS. So if you ever notice that some of your applications have access to SMS messaging, this is why. You actually gave that permission to them during the download, so they can read what comes in, and basically they're getting your 4 or 6 digit authentication code. So these are specifically crafted apps. You will see that if you do some research on the internet, we do have some other posts about BankBot where there are hundreds of banks targeted by this. They're specific to the bank because they need specific overlays. Those images are available on the internet, and the malware just grabs the most recent image, overlays that on your device, and then aha. And then Anubis is another Android banking malware. It targeted a total of 188 finance and banking applications, and it's able to take screenshots, record audio. It can also send and receive SMS messages. It can get your contact list, your account credentials. It can open URLs and download payloads. So really, really dangerous. So make sure that you are enabling some type of detection for these malware packages in your banking apps if you are a mobile banking developer. And then payment scams. Basically, this attack focuses on hijacking data in motion, right? I want to gather data from a device, from the pasteboard or SMS, basically where a human can read it. So if you think about when data is encrypted, it's encrypted when, one, it's in motion or it's at rest, but a user can't read encrypted data. So, capture it at a point where a user is wanting to read that. And then really what they're trying to do is obtain Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. These are, crypto is hot. And you think that you can't be hacked by this, but there are several examples. There are SIM-jacking examples. There are examples of people losing their passwords, accidentally pasting their password somewhere else. So really be careful. And these are specifically crafted apps and that monitor the clipboard. And if an app has access to your clipboard, anything you copy and paste, they can read, or it can read, right? So the app reads this. And then there's a tool, the MetaMask malware on Android impersonates a legitimate service called MetaMask, right? So there's a malware that is specifically targeting this, and the malware's primary purpose is to steal your credentials and private keys and gain control over your funds. So if they steal your keys and they drain your account and you had this malware on your device, you know, I feel very sorry for you. There are a couple stories on the internet where this has happened, and the guy was, you know, his entire account was just drained. Poor guy. And then malvertising. Again, this is similar to the clickbots, and this attack displays advertisements on mobile devices through malicious or rather legitimate methods as a path to monetization. So what they're trying to do is use your device to defraud the ad network. So they'll get human clicks on ads and load hidden scripts in the background to generate clicks that are invisible to you. So you may notice your device getting hot, or if you have a data utility on your device, it's like, wow, this app is using a lot of data. It may be something like that. And basically hackers will deliver this via, you know, rogue SDKs. You know, they'll provide an SDK, and then it just kind of goes crazy. And they're really smart. You know, they'll know, you know, when your device is plugged in. So your device is plugged in at night. So maybe they only use your device at night when it's plugged in because they need lots of power, and you won't ever know, but you're generating funds and money for those guys that have installed malware on your device. So repackaging legitimate apps. And this is a hacker just repackaging a legit app. You know, it looks real, but it includes malicious code. And then what they'll do is they'll just re-sign the app using a different certificate. So you as a user don't know, but you as a developer need to watch out for this. So they embed malware. They distribute, you know, paid applications for free. So if you ever see a helper app, you know, Pokemon Go helper app was popular a couple of years ago, and basically this was an app to get around some legitimate functions, or free codes or shortcuts or anything that would bypass, you know, the desired path from the developer. You know, look for apps like this. So these are, you know, APK tool is a popular tool. In rare cases, you can find some custom-made injection utilities that were doing this. And you know, some of the Android-based smartphone banking apps were attacked to verify whether a money transfer could be made to an unintended recipient. And there's research out there that shows without having to illegally obtain any of the sender's personal information, such as the sender's public key certificate or passwords or anything, researchers were able to capture payments without actually having the credentials. So they captured that over the air. So really, really cool. I'll provide a link to that after this webinar. And then dynamic analysis and instrumentation. So this attack seeks to reverse engineer an app and, you know, runs it in a virtual environment so that all the communication inputs and outputs can be observed, right? So again, you'll see free to expose substrate, Captain Hook, send scripts, inject as tools to do this. And what they're looking for is, you know, loaded files, memory buffers, encrypted information that may be decrypted at some point, you know, bypass security checks, and they're looking for ways to get around all of the things that you're trying to prevent. So you want to make your app as hard as possible to attack, but unless you are actually detecting real-time attacks, you don't know that's happening. So you need to make sure that you know that it's actually happening, so you can, one, you can be warned, right? You can take remediation action, or you can install a mobile threat defense SDK into your app and then code the remediation. You know, if it's being attacked in this method, then do this remediation, and that's shut off the user, close the app, clear the cache, you know, whatever that you can do there. But really, really cool things that you can do. So racing resources attacks. These are some of my favorite. This attack takes advantage of careless in protocols, right? So malicious payload injection is basically just carelessness, right? Tools, you'll see malicious SDKs. You'll see some SDKs provided out there that can, it's helpful to the developer, but you don't know what you don't know. So basically, what the hackers are trying to do is gain information, right? Operation Sheep is a group of Android applications and basically just harvested contact information on mobile phones without users knowing, right? So once they had all the user information, this makes other attacks more attractive, right? So I can send spear phishing to your contacts, and I know that they're from you. So, hey, this is Scott, and, click on this link. Is this you? Kind of thing. You've seen these spam messages sent to you via your SMS messages, and they're trying to, they're trying to force a payload injection onto your device via your device or an app. So be careful with that. And then crypto mining. So this attack makes unauthorized use of computing resources on the victim's device. So similar to DDoS, you can use all these devices to mine cryptocurrencies. And you need computational power. So again, this is similar to the ad fraud. What they'll do is they know where you are, right? Your geolocation. So they know it's nighttime, and they know your device is plugged in because they need lots of power. So when it's at night and when your device is plugged in, they'll activate the crypto mining, and they're using your device to do that. So they're using your resource power, your electricity, and they'll inject malicious JavaScript payloads in other applications. So there's a lot of browser-based vulnerabilities in devices that can help you or help attackers rather get into your application. So you want to make sure that you're defending against any kind of file code, file system changes, anything like that. One of the more popular examples was a meme generator. So an app, people can go download this and generate memes, and if you're into that thing. But what it actually did was it was a Bitcoin mining, and the app uses the device processing power unbeknownst to the user. So legitimate app, but what it was doing is stealing your power, makes it not a good app. You don't want that on your device. And then last but not least, information leakage attacks. So here's attackers stealing information. They're obtaining data through some type of leaky apps, or they're basically just monitoring your traffic. So let's look at a couple examples from stealing information. So this attack is to exploit vulnerabilities on a device, such as bad communications, weak or missing encryption. So it seeks to gather information again through your communication methods. Could be microphone or camera too, which is really scary and obtrusive on our privacy, right? So what they want to do is they want to obtain your geolocation, any type of device identifiers, so they know where you are, and then photos, emails, contacts, any type of information that can be used against you. There's a lot of spyware out there installed on the victim's device. I know Apple cracked down earlier this year on spyware app developers. So this is when someone would actually install an app on your device and they know where you are. A family locator app was actually an example here, but there was a spyware that was disguised as a service application from legitimate mobile operators. And then once the malware was installed, it was able to continuously run and remain persistent on the victim's device. And what the spyware was doing was downloading data. It was downloading messages, call logs from all of its victims, I believe this was from a mobile operator in Italy. And then second example with the WhatsApp logo here is, I think this was a couple of months ago, there was the missing link spyware was used to surveil senior members of the Tibetan groups, right? They were sending malicious links in individually tailored WhatsApp text exchanges with operators. They were posing as NATO workers, journalists, and other fake personas, but the links led to code designed to exploit a web browser vulnerability to install spyware. So they were trying to they were sending them these fake WhatsApp messages, and then the link took them somewhere else, and was using a vulnerability on the device. So really, really scary. So you need to watch out for that too, right? So make sure that one, you're obfuscating your application, and two, the real-time attacks. So so don't let people spear phish you and install application code on your device. So data leakage. So this, sometimes these happen by mistake, but what happens is the attack is exploiting the storage or the backend databases that a mobile app is using. So an unprotected database is just out there on the internet, and people trip on these, right? So researchers will comb the internet, and they're looking for unprotected databases, and you see these from time to time. There are some famous examples, and we won't go into all of them here because there are way too many. But you're just looking for information. BetterCap, Burp Suite, Fiddler, custom scripts can do this, right? And what is happening is this data is exposed and can be used for other purposes. So I mentioned the Family Locator app earlier, and it was leaking real-time locations of about 250,000 users for weeks after the developer left they left a server exposed without a password, and they found it after a couple of weeks. But really, really dangerous to leave that out there, right? You want to make sure that you got all your storage, your user information locked up, because they're trusting you, right? So we're trusting the app developer that he's doing a good job. So make sure that you got all that covered. And then network monitoring. So this is a network-based attack that intercepts data, right? So any data sent and received to a mobile device across the network. There's lots of tools to do this. We actually use these in demonstrations when we show people how easy it is to listen to device traffic via lots of different channels. So BetterCap, Burp Suite, Fiddler again. So what I'm doing is I'm looking for information. Are you going to send a password? Private messages, emails, photos, anything that's coming and going to your device that can be used against the company, you, a colleague, somebody in your network, right? You need to make sure that that all that information is hidden from outsiders. So you want to make sure and detect against that. So I went really, really quickly. There is a paper that is available that will be sent to everyone that registered to this webinar, the top 5 ways that hackers attack your apps, with all the examples that we talked about and questions answered in the paper. Basically, how do I defend against these attacks? How can I view attacks on our app? So if my app is attacked, how do I know it? And then what do I do? So if there is an attack, how do I remediate against it? And then how can we measure improvements? So as we release these applications and publish them in the app stores, are we getting better or worse, right? And then we'll provide in the paper all the examples that you can provide to your colleagues. You can share amongst the office. You could probably do your own lunch and learn with the paper and these slides. You can get the paper at the link below. If you need more information or if you'd like the slides, please email me at king@zimperium.com, and I'd be happy to help. Thanks so much for joining, and have a great rest of the day.